Okay, so welcome. Our final Rise session, and our topic for today is dosha recommendations. So a lot of our recommendations for sleep and wakefulness are very much one size fits all recommendations. You should, dim the lights and keep your bedroom cold. And the beauty of Ayurvedic or dosha recommendations is that it's more individualized. So, are you the type of person who I gave this recommendation? We should dim the lights. Well, how dim do you put the lights? Some people might like it a little brighter, a little darker. And what do we do around that? So I will give us some dosha recommendations, but I think one of the most important, the TED Talk, your big idea takeaway is that Ayurveda is the balance of opposites. So if you're the type of person who runs hot, you're too hot all the time, guess what? Cool down. If you're thirsty, drink water. That kind of common sense still applies here. A little reminder, what are our three doshas? We have our vata dosha. That's me, high energy, fast moving, fast talking. This is often described as like an airheaded sort of person. We're usually cold and never stop moving. So our issues are that we need to be warmed up and figure out how to come into stillness. Then we have our fiery dosha, pitta. These people are often very direct, argumentative, competitive. They get heated in the sense of a heated argument, but also body temperature. These are the people who can only sleep with the window open in the middle of winter and an ice pack on their forehead. They need to be cooled and soothed. Their issues are often around temperature with sleep, but also they can be prone to that kind of can't shut off brain. Everything has to be productive and work oriented. And then finally, our third dosha, we have our kapha types. So I always think of that very patient librarian kindergarten teacher type that's maybe a little more slow talking, a bit more flowy. And the issue with our kapha types when it comes to sleep and rest is that they don't tire themselves out, depends on what kind of kapha you are. But usually this is the type who benefits the most from morning movement. You wake up and go to overcome that sluggishness. Kapha types have fantastic endurance. So they might be stuck in first gear first thing in the morning, but then once we can get them into, second or third gear, they just keep going. Our vata types are like the car is off and we're having trouble starting the engine, and then we're just going top speed all day. And then our pitta types are somewhere more in the middle. So here are our dosha recommendations, and for morning movement mostly, but also lifestyle stuff. And we'll do some different movements today that are particularly good for some doshas, but not all. So here we go. Morning exercise, and I will send you my notes. I maybe am repeating myself. For sluggish kaphas, so if you notice you are very sluggish in the morning and you are that kapha type, though, if we're thinking balancing off opposite energies, do not have a 2-hour breakfast in bed, slow start to the day. We need to kind of encourage you to get up and go. I know, I see you laughing. One of my kapha friends, her favorite thing is to get out of bed, get coffee, and then get back in bed and just stay there for hours. That's fine. But if 5 o'clock rolls around and you realize I'm feeling really sluggish, I don't feel good, I haven't done anything all day, I'm feeling very like stick in the mud kind of energy, then maybe a good morning routine would have helped. So morning movement should be energizing and invigorating. And we can also use essential oils. So any kind of essential oil that you find gives you that sort of feeling is perfect. Lemon is usually the go-to. It's cheap and easy to find. Anything else that's citrusy, brightening, that gives you sort of a lifted feeling is good. We want to stay away from the heavy kind of vetiver and fir and lavender and sleepy things like that, even though we might like them to get us going in the morning. Citrus is usually our best friend. Okay, for vata, if you wake up feeling really depleted, then more soothing movement is good. So vatas actually tend to do well, and we've done this a little bit, not actually with morning exercise necessarily, but we're still getting the body moving with massage. So when we take our oil and massage our entire body, that is technically, I would consider it morning movement, because you have to get into your whole body. It increases circulation. Vatas tend to have dry skin, so we get that moisturizing element. And we don't have to exercise for that long. Again, if we think vatas are, the car engine is off and then we're in fifth gear, this tends to be how vatas exercise. Okay, 6 a.m. high intensity workout, and they're just like done falling apart 20 minutes later. For vatas, I would say less is more. Short workout, lift your energy, start your day. Some of the more recent research I've heard from Kelly McGonigal, she researches movement. She said 2 minutes. And I think I've mentioned this before, 2 minutes of movement that you enjoy. So she says she really hates exercising in the morning, but she'll do like 2 minutes of sun salutations and she feels the benefit later in the day. And again, we can use essential oil. Maybe citrus is our friend. We might like for our vatas something a little stronger and heavier. So that's where you might like to mix citrus with vetiver or fir or something like that, so it's not too much. Something maybe a little warming like cinnamon to go with it. So I always like clove and orange, that I feel it's nice and warming but still brightening. And bright light, also super helpful for our vatas, kind of overwhelming for our kapha types, but can be really nice to wake up our vatas. For pitta, early morning is the best time of day for a hard workout. I have known many pittas that in the heat of the day, they get their lunch break and it's, like 400 degrees outside and they want to go do an intense spin class or intense weightlifting. And their fire burns so hot, and before they know it, they're snapping at people and they're snarky and agitated and aggravated. So morning movement, if you want a hard workout, honestly, the Ayurvedic recommendation, 6 a.m. Wake up at 5, kind of ease into your day. That 6 a.m. workout is the best time to go, go, go. But for our vata and pitta types, we're only supposed to work out to 75%. These are often the people who go, give it 110%, 110%. And we know that's, first of all, an impossibility, but you can't run at 110% all the time. And often sort of the dark side of this is people who can't stick to a workout routine. I tried, but it was just too much for me. So dial it back. Maybe half an hour at 75% is all you need to start your day. Perfect. And there's a whole world of research if you want to get out there, and a trend in exercise now. Because the world works in 1 hour blocks, we sort of think you have to exercise for an hour. And there's so much more research now to support exercise less, move more. 20 minutes in the morning, you're good to go. And then just make wiser choices during your day about movement. Park at the back of the parking lot, take the stairs, get a dog, play with your grandchildren, whatever it might be that gets you out and moving. Even things that we don't think of as exercise. Go to a museum. It might be really big and they don't have a working elevator because it's an old building. Just anything to get moving. How are we doing for time? Okay, I'll do a little bit about napping and afternoon sleepiness. So I will say, in our world, we tend to think that like naps are for toddlers and the rest of us should just stay up all day. And interestingly, I read an article yesterday that's recommending siestas, as we now have climate change and more parts of the world are dealing with really hot afternoon temperatures. And there is research to support the lovely siesta. Now, if you find that you are that type of person who naps and feels awful the rest of the day, common sense, rest, don't nap. We don't want you to feel awful or sluggish, or somebody was saying that I feel too hot when I nap. I feel awful for hours. Maybe naps are not for you, but rest is still good. And if you are falling asleep at your desk, you probably need a little sleep, or maybe you're not at your desk in the afternoon. And I think this is kind of scary because I used to be driving to classes at this time of day. The number one time for vehicle accidents is 1:30 in the afternoon. We tend to think it's during rush hour. It's during that sleepy dip. I would love to know, of the people who get in these accidents, how many of them are vatas, because vatas tend to be the ones. I I have fallen asleep at my desk in the afternoon. I once put something in the microwave for 40 seconds and said, I'm just going to put my feet up. Or maybe it was a little longer than 40 seconds, but I said, I'm just going to put my feet up until the microwave beeps. I did not hear it beep. I was asleep for 2 hours. That's how fast I was out. So please, if you need rest in the afternoon, it is not some deep moral failing, just rest in the afternoon. On the note of me, the vata, falling asleep, naps are actually only recommended for vatas, because we have this sort of stop and start energy that if you are just plowing through your day full tilt and you're burnt out by the afternoon, yeah, take a nap. But if you're more that slow and steady energy, just take a pause instead. Our kapha types are not supposed to nap. Something more like a yoga nidra, where you repeat to yourself, I will not sleep, I will stay awake, or seated meditation. Anything that gives us that sense of balance and pause without sleeping is perfect. And if you're sort of in that liminal space of, I think I'm dozing off, I can't quite tell, that's actually great. There's this thinking in yoga that that's like the sweet spot that we can aim for, where you're not quite asleep and you're not quite awake. So if you kind of dip into that and wake up after, a minute or so, you're getting the good stuff. That's good. And then anything else that we can do in the afternoon to, again, balance our energies. If you're pitta type and it's way too hot, put an ice pack on your chest or get some peppermint essential oil. Florals are also really soothing for pittas. If you tend to get cold in the afternoon because you're sedentary, doesn't matter what dosha you are, do something to warm up, make a cup of tea. Anything we can do to balance during that afternoon dip will help us get more out of the evening. Light is really important. So going into a dark room, closing our eyes, especially for pittas. Pittas are supposed to get a good break. You're supposed to wrap your head in the afternoon. An eye pillow works great. A dark room with your eyes closed works great too. And then to come out of that afternoon slump, we can do the opposite. Flip the lights back on and get ourselves moving. All right, those are my dosha recommendations. Let's get into our class. So we will do some kind of different non-exercise movement. I did mention self-massage. We will practice some of that. We don't have oil, but you could get some and do that kind of thing. If you are a pitta or vata type, keep in mind that only working to 75%. If you are a kapha type, keep in mind that sense of inhaling and invigorating. And what else are we going to do? Yeah. Okay. Let's start with our mudra for today. We'll start with, okay, this is a heating mudra, and we'll do it in front of our solar plexus. So this is our solar plexus chakra is supposed to be our location of heat, fire, hard work. And in the morning, we're supposed to be warming our bodies up. So we'll focus here. I did want to do this really complicated mudra that I honestly can't figure out what's happening. So I went with the simpler one. But I think the key part is that we hold it in front of our solar plexus chakra and keep in mind that internal strength and fire that we have. We will take one palm open and then a fist in our palm and our thumb up. So this is our fire gesture. It's probably not strong enough to make anyone's fire burn too hot, but of course, if you notice that happening, just rest the hands. Option to close our eyes. And let's tap into this fiery, uplifted gesture. Pressing down into the floor, reaching the crown of the head to the sky, long, tall spine. And we'll start with our 3-part breath that we've been doing each week. So, with our inhale, imagining that we are filling our lungs like we would fill a glass of water from bottom to top. And with our exhale, simply letting go. So that with each inhale, we notice first movements of belly, then ribs, then chest, collarbones, and maybe our shoulders. But let's keep those shoulder blades sliding down and back. And we'll keep the weight of the world off our shoulders, a little bit of ease here. And we can add a count. I will offer us the option for a box breath. So we can inhale 1, 2, 3. Exhaling 3, 2, 1. And we can stretch our breath out, letting our breath become deeper, fuller, longer. We can do this by slowing down the count, or you might like to count to a higher number. Really, the count just helps keep our minds focused. Maybe noticing the feeling of warmth in our hands and bodies. An option to add breath retention. So at the top of our inhale, with our lungs full, we'll pause and hold our breath. And at the bottom of our exhale, with our lungs empty, we'll pause and hold the breath. So inhale, pause, exhale, pause. Of course, if at any point you feel like you can't get enough air or it doesn't feel good, breathe any way that you feel good. And then option to stretch this out to be box breathing. So if we're inhaling for 3, we pause and hold the breath for 3. If we're exhaling for 3, we pause and hold the breath for 3. So whatever we're working on, let's give it a few more rounds here at least, noticing how we're feeling, modifying to suit your own needs. If you notice that you're really gripping or holding too much tension somewhere, let's see if we can release it. And then let's focus our attention on our abs. We'll come back to a normal kind of breath, but with our exhale, let's pull our abdominal muscles in. That old Jane Fonda belly button to spine idea as we breathe out. And we'll keep our breath deep, but we might be speeding it up in an effort to wake ourselves up. Let's do one more breath like this. And then we can release our hands. Sitting tall, we might want to reset our posture. Sometimes it's nice. The Reiki people usually do this to sweep the hands off. And I will give us a little music. Here we go. All right, so let's start with a big stretch up to the sky. Big breath up and out. And then we'll bring hands to heart. Last one here. We'll bring our hands together. Okay, our non-exercise movement. We start by rubbing our hands together. So we could do this to wake and warm, or if you did have massage oil, you could have your massage oil between your hands to warm it up before we put it on. And this is actually the traditional Ayurvedic recommendation for everyone. Everyone should be doing oil massage every morning. And let's take our imaginary oil. We're going to sweep up and towards the heart. This is kind of a nice self-care practice that we can do each morning. And really let your body be your guide. So there might be areas that we want to spend extra time and attention on. And it's not a rational practice. Just let your body be your guide. We can let our intuition guide us. We can get in behind our traps and pull forward or off to the side. Sometimes that one's really nice. So generally I'll do this in the morning before I shower. Put oil on, let it sit for a few minutes while you brush your teeth or whatever else you have going on. And we can do our lower body as well. Might be easier if you're sitting on the floor, but the same kind of idea that we can apply our imaginary oil sweeping up. And yes, in real life, we would have to keep, putting more oil in our hands. We could be using a scented oil, that morning citrus or floral. And the benefits of this kind of movement, of course, are that we can do them even if we're not feeling so hot, if we're not feeling so energized. But we are getting circulation going. We're waking up our lymphatic system. This is really important for immune function. Our lymphatic system, I like to say it's not a self-starter. We get our lymphatic system going by getting up and moving. So we can do that through any kind of massage or sweeping, any kind of bouncing movement that helps wake it up. Right. And then we can get into our back and our torso and really anywhere else. So maybe we could even call that our 2 minutes of morning exercise if we were doing this maybe more vigorously for our kapha types and a little more soothing for our pitta and vata types. And now let's do what's sometimes called percussion or tapping. Different than emotional freedom technique. We don't do it with any words. We just create a vibration in our bodies. So I like to do it from head to toe. We start at the top of the head. And the same as we did with our oil, it's not a rational process. Just let your body be your guide. Wherever it feels good, get in there. I always like to get in on the sides of my head, behind my ears. You might like the back of the head. So we're creating vibration in our skulls. So you might actually notice any kind of sinus congestion starts to clear up. We can go more gently across our faces, our collarbones. This is supposed to keep us looking youthful. We can go along the jawline. And we could also be doing face massage and sweeping if you like it even more gentle than that percussion. And let's do one that is highly recommended to boost our energy. We'll do 3 that are very recommended for an energy boost. And again, our immune system: collarbones, breastbone, and hip bone. So we can just add that vibration or percussion across our collarbones. And we can work our way down into the breastbone. And some people will do like a gorilla, a big thump. So you might like that, or you might like to be a little bit more gentle. We could do one hand or both. And for our hip bones, we're actually going to come to standing. So no rush to get there, but if you're sitting in a chair like me, we can move it out of the way. If you're sitting on the floor, we'll come to standing. And of course, anybody who's watching the recording, if you ever need your chair for balance, we could stay seated the whole time, or we can use it putting our hand on it for support. All right, our hip bones to wake us up, soft fists, our pinky side. Could be going faster or slower. Remembering our qualities of opposites. So if you tend to give it 110%, go really, really fast, maybe go a little bit more soothing here. If you tend to be a little slow and sluggish, let's really get into it. And then to give our hands a breather, we can shake our wrists off or sweep our hands. Beautiful. Alrighty, we'll do a little bit more balanced movement, and then we will come back to this idea of our lymphatic system and waking things up. So let's just start in a tall mountain pose. Option to close our eyes, checking in with how we're feeling, noticing how this kind of vigorous, non-exercise movement has been working for you. And once more, we're ready to get moving. So let's start by circle sweeping our arms, inhaling up and exhaling down. And then our next time through, let's sit down and back into chair pose. So our feet might be hip width apart or even a little bit wider. But we should be able to wiggle our toes at the bottom range of motion, making sure that our weight is in our heels. As we stand tall, maybe imagining that we're growing roots, pressing our feet into the earth. And we're growing taller as we reach the crown of the head to the sky. And then the next time we have our arms overhead, let's stay there. So big reach up overhead. And again, this is another non-exercise movement that is supposed to wake us up. Simply reaching the arms up and actually reaching our eyes up as well. So Dr. Andrew Huberman does a lot of work with hacks for our bodies using the eyes, and simply looking up to make us feel more awake with the eyes open is a big one. All right, we'll bring hands back to heart center. We'll bring our eyes back to face forward, and we're gonna step wide. So if you are on a yoga mat, we'll step to face the long edge of our yoga mat for sun and moonflowers. Let's go ahead and inhale up and out. We might like what we just did, taking the eyes up to increase that uplifted energy, and then we're exhaling down into moonflowers. Warming up our inner thighs. Using this to balance your current energy. So if you are feeling kind of slow and sluggish, rather than limply moving through and slowly moving through, let's really hug muscle to bone, energized and dynamic. And if you're feeling maybe spun or anxious, then it might be helpful to move in a more steady, slower paced way. Option to turn this into our sunflowers, instead hinging from our hips so our chest comes forward and our tailbone goes back. We can draw a big circle with our fingertips, channeling the energy of the sun, feeling heat building in our bodies. Let's go ahead and meet at the top range of motion. We'll take a big breath up. And we'll bring hands to heart center. Good, let's turn toes forward, and now we'll go side to side in a side lunge. So we'll get some stretch for our inner thigh and maybe some strength for our outer thigh. You might feel stretch in your outer thigh too. So one leg looks like chair pose, knee over ankle, and the other leg is straight. Let's come back through center. And we'll take it the other way. Yes, we might like our hand to our thigh for support. That's up to you. But if we want to add arms, we can. Inhaling up and exhaling down through our side lunge. Perfect. To help lift our energy, feeling our ribs expand on our inhale, keeping our core muscles pulled in strong the whole time. And the next time we're on one side, let's stay there. We'll get a deeper stretch. So again, we can take hands to heart or thigh, or you may even like to come down to the floor to feel an inner thigh stretch here. We'll reach up tall before we switch to the other side. We take our eyes to the sky, and let's hold on the other side. Hands to thigh, floor, or heart center. Let's reach up tall. And again, we can turn our toes out. We'll take our hands to our thighs and we'll lower down in a wide squat. Might feel nice to drop one shoulder at a time or move around in any other way that feels good. We can even turn our toes all the way forward again if you like. Back to standing. So again, we can put a bend in our knees, use our core strength to bring us up tall. We'll walk our feet in. Let's take a deep breath up. We'll bring hands to heart. Perfect. Alrighty, we're gonna step back. So if you are on a yoga mat, go ahead and step to the top of your yoga mat. I'll show you from the side. We're alternating a single step back into flight of the bird. It doesn't matter right or left. We'll come back halfway into a short warrior one. And then we'll step back up to the top of the mat and the opposite side. All right, so this is our pattern, a short stance warrior one. Maybe we're noticing a stretch through the back of the leg, our calf and ankle. So if on some day you are really not feeling it, we could be moving like this, right? Slow and easy, inhaling back, exhaling forward, encouraging our energy levels to pick up. If you'd like, of course we can add on, right? So we can open our arms to cactus and then exhaling back to heart. Nice big stretch open across the chest. Yeah. And I would say, rather than leaning back, going with the momentum of this, resist the momentum of it. So let's keep our body weight forward as we step back, kind of like we're getting ready to run a race. So we have some forward kind of momentum and energy in the body. And we can still lift the chest, but lifting it up rather than leaning back. And if we want more, yes, of course, we can inhale up as we take a really big warrior one step back. We can use this trick with our eyes looking up, keeping our eyes open. And if you feel awake and ready to move, I would say don't hold back. Let that energy flourish. Just make sure we're not over or underdoing it. And yes, it does take a while to kind of have that self-study, as we call it, to figure out for yourself what is too little and what is too much. That Goldilocks, just right position. Okay, our last option, we could have our back heel lifted and our arms straight up overhead. And we might like to add a little fire pull in. Elbows in, tight fist like we're doing a bicep curl. So any of those options that we've been doing are perfectly fine. You can keep working with the first one, second, third, fourth, or if your brain is checking out, you can just copy whatever I'm doing. Looks good. We'll give it a few more. Let's go once more each side. We'll come back to standing. Coming into mountain. And let's take a hand to heart and a hand to belly. Got a couple 3-part breaths here again to notice how we're doing. And making a mental note of anything that you feel is really working for you. Let's open our eyes. We'll come back together to face forward. We'll do again another non-exercise movement to help us get going. And it requires us to thump our tricep into the side of our ribs. So we'll reach our arms up like we've just won something amazing and we're going yahoo. Again, we can make a tight fist and pull in quite vigorously. Reach up and then pull in quite vigorously. So this one always reminds me of when I was a kid, we used to push on the dog's ribs and she'd go, and this little puff of air would come out her nose. That's kind of what we're going for here. That if you notice that impact of your arm against your ribs makes you do a short little exhale, that's the sort of force that we're looking for. Okay, keeping in mind, comfortable range of motion. We don't want to overdo it, but this may be better than coffee for you to start your morning. I should have said sorry. We could also do this in a smaller range of motion if you have frozen shoulder or anything like that. Alrighty, let's go another 3, 2, last one. And then a gentle swing through with the arms to release that tension. We can let our hands and our arms just kind of hang limp. Let's give our shoulders a couple rolls, up, down, and back. All right. And let's do again some vigorous movement. It might involve our arms. And then we'll get into some shoulder stretches. So we'll start like this. Let's work on our overhead range of motion. And if by chance this is a huge reach for you, yes, we could be bending our arms. We could be going halfway up. Depends on how our shoulders are doing. But let's take one wrist and stretch one side of our body. So if you're going with me, we're pressing our right foot down. We're stretching the right side of the body, drawing the right shoulder blade down the back, and then our left hand is helping bring us into that movement. And I would say focus on opening through the rib cage. Rather than shoving the hip to the side, we keep our pelvis fairly neutral and the hip opens. Let's take one more breath in and out, noticing how our inhale increases that expansion. We'll come back through center. We'll give our arms a breather. And then we've got the other side. Reaching up overhead. We can take our hand to our wrist. So now we're opening the left side, sliding the left shoulder blade down the back. Our right arm helps pull a little, but not too much. Focusing the stretch sensation on the rib cage rather than the pelvis. Pressing our left foot down. And if we need to bend the elbows, one or both, we could do that. Might also, depending on overhead range of motion, have the hands in front of the face. But if we can reach up, let's maintain that range of motion by straightening the arms. Right back through center. And we'll reach in behind, but let's keep our hands open. So we're working more on strengthening the upper back, drawing shoulder blades towards one another. A little different angle than when we interlace our fingers, which I will give us the chance to do afterwards. All right, so let's let our arms come back into neutral, our posture come back into neutral. We've done this one before. Hopefully we're loosened up for it. We're gonna do what I call our slam ball exercise. I'm actually not sure what it's called in yoga, but in the gym as a personal trainer, we have these heavy medicine balls that we reach up and then throw down on the floor. The benefit in yoga is that we don't have to get down and pick the ball back up off the floor each time because there is no ball. All right, so we're gonna inhale up and then we exhale, we sit down and back into a chair and throw the ball away. Inhale up, and a sharp exhale from the nose or the mouth. So you might like to breathe like you're blowing it through a straw, pursed lips, or through the nose. Let's keep going with that. You might like to picture something else, more like you're smashing a plate on the floor, or that lovely lofty yoga saying, getting rid of whatever no longer serves you. Again, we might like to move more smoothly or more vigorously. Let's go for 3 more. Okay, this time, rather than meeting with our arms overhead, let's sit down and back into chair. All this energy that we've stirred up and created, we're gonna bring it into our center, focusing our minds through stillness in our bodies. Let's see if we can breathe smoothly and evenly. Let's hold 3, 2, 1. Awesome. Again, we might like to shake out or roll our shoulders. And I believe I did promise some shoulder stretches. So here's how I like to do this one. I personally like to step out and have a wider base. I'm not quite sure why. But if you'd like to, go ahead and join me. And we'll take our palms up and pull open. So we did do a ton of moving around and getting our heart rate up. We'll ease ourselves into some deeper stretches. Now we have our opportunity to reach our hands towards one another, and we may like to interlace, lifting hearts high. And if our hands are interlaced, we can engage the action of pulling our hands away from one another, but our hands are interlaced so they won't go anywhere. But we're still pulling them apart, but they stay together. We'll turn toes forward, and then option to bring this into a wide-legged forward fold. So if you notice that you're prone to getting a head rush, we can go halfway down. This is also a nice way to keep working on our strength in the lower body and in the core. And then if we would like what's sometimes called bat pose, we can come into a much deeper forward fold, but we're still keeping our arms alongside our spines. Working our elbows towards straight. And like I said, totally normal to get a head rush here. We might want to come up higher or even take our hands to our thighs, whatever option you're doing. Let's see if we can stay here a few more rounds of breath. And we'll go ahead and bend our knees. We can take hands to our thighs and walk our way up whenever you're ready. No rush to get there. All the way up to standing. Let's go ahead and inhale up, but this time we're gonna open our arms to cactus. This is actually a nice one to do during the day if you're sitting at your desk. We're gonna work in two directions. So we're gonna pull our elbows back. We're especially gonna pull the right elbow back as we turn and look towards the left. So rather than just kind of limply hanging out here, we keep pulling back, 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 and then looking away from whichever side we're squeezing. Coming back through center, give our arms a break. And then reaching up, coming up into cactus, sliding shoulder blades down and back. Let's pull the left elbow way back as we turn and look to the right. Back through center. Let's let these go. And we'll come into a little hip flexor stretch. So we're going to work into dancer's pose. Any kind of back bend is great to help us wake up. Dancers is the one that I have picked for today. So let's go ahead and we'll all step the left foot back into a lunge. And our hip flexor is the front of the hip. It's the muscle that does this. It does hip flexion. It helps lift our leg. So we're going to take it in the opposite direction. And then it might take a little tweaking to kind of adjust the hip side or front. And you might actually prefer to put the foot flat rather than have the heel lifted. But let's do whatever we can do to get some stretch through the front of the left hip. You might get a lot out of reaching the left arm up. And you might really like to tuck the tailbone under. That's not necessarily how we should be doing lunges, but it increases the hip flexor stretch if we tuck under. If you're in like a boot camp class or working with weights as a strength variation, the pelvis should actually be in neutral, but as a stretch variation, we can tuck under. Let's take one more breath in and out. We'll release. Stepping back up to the top. And let's take the other foot back. So right foot back. So we're stretching the right hip flexor, adjusting however you need to. The back foot can be flat or heel lifted. We might need to kind of push the hip around to find a good stretch. Might like to tuck the tail under. And then if it adds something for us, we can reach the right arm up. Maybe we're noticing our breathing is slowing down, lengthening out. make our way back to the top of the mat. And let's come into a back bend here. A couple different ways that we can get there. As we've been doing with our chest expansion, we can reach back as we lift chest to sky. We might like to interlace and keep going. Some of us might like a bit more support. We can take our fists to the back of our pelvis or to the back of our legs. And just like with our side bending, ideally, our pelvis stays where it is, but our rib cage is what opens up. Let's take a breath into our heart space, feeling expansion through the front of the ribs. And then we'll return back through center. Okay, dancer's pose. Here we go. So we might want to hold on to something. You probably remember this from gym class, even if you've never heard it called dancer's pose before. We're doing a quad stretch. So I like to do a big circle up, around, and back to help open the front of the shoulder. And if you can't quite reach your foot, we can just be holding here, actually. We get a little bit more strength from this variation, probably less strength, stretch sensation. Might be able to reach your pant leg or your sock. And yes, of course, if we can reach the ankle, go for it. Our opposite arm can release if it's not holding on to anything. And let's keep that tall, confident, chest lifted posture. And generally, we say for balance, pick a spot on the floor to stare at, but since we're trying to lift our energy up, I'd say pick a spot on the wall to stare at. Okay, once you've found that moment of flight, feeling good, we can release with control whenever you're ready. I want to shake our leg off. And we're ready for the other side, aren't we? Okay. Into our big sweep. Fling whatever we can reach. Maybe our other hand holds on to something. We can lift up and out. Picking a spot on the wall to stare at, reaching our eyes up a bit. Probably notice we can't take a really full breath here. That's because we are back bending. We've kind of cut off some of our inhale ability. So as we inhale, noticing our chest expanding. Find that moment of flight and success. When you are ready, you can release. Come back through center. Let's reset. Inhaling up and exhaling into heart. So here's our choice. Option to stay standing or seated for our closing meditation. Theoretically, working on this theme to keep our energy lifting, we should stay standing. You might feel you need more support or more soothing energy. Feel free to sit. Yogi's choice. We can come back to our mudra, one hand flat, and then the thumbs up on the other hand. Releasing shoulders down and back. We can spread our toes, energizing the feet, putting a little bend in our knees. Slightly pulling our abdominal muscles in to support our tall posture. And let's scan the body, head to toe, noticing how we're feeling at this very moment. You may like to choose a word or several words to describe how you're feeling, mind, body, or spirit. Maybe we're noticing the heat in our bodies that we've been building and in our hands with our mudra. And let's see if we can invite our breath to become deeper, fuller, smoother, longer, more energized, or any other quality that you'd like your breath to have at this moment. Let's release our hands, coming into a plain old mountain pose, or if you are seated, palms open. Option to come back to our 3-part breath or our box breathing. So we could add breath retention, inhale, and then pause with the lungs full, exhale, pause with the lungs empty. Let's release this. And one last time, we can bring hands to heart center to close our practice together. Thank you so much for joining me, not just today, but for the whole month. The light in me honors and recognizes the light in you. So we are one. Namaste. All right, take your time reanimating, coming back